Anything's possible, right?
Jedi. You're a Jedi, huh? I'm a fucking Sith Lord, bitch! Hello, we're continuing our reviews on Disney's lineup of Star Wars movies with Rogue One, a Star Wars story, which is the first of what I think is being called the Star Wars Anthology series, where it's a series of spin-off movies that are set within the Star Wars universe, and this anthology series is sort of running concurrently with this new Star Wars trilogy they're doing, but like, they're films set within the Star Wars universe, but for the most part they act as standalone stories, and this one actually acts as a direct prequel to the original Star Wars film, but it also acts as sort of a sequel to Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, like Jimmy Smits' character from the prequels, Senator Organa, who's actually Leia's adopted father. Yep. He shows up in this, and also the lava planet from Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, that shows up in this as well. But Rogue One, I remember when I saw this in the theaters back in 2016, I really loved this, and remember, I didn't like Force Awakens when I first saw it. My opinions on Force Awakens have completely changed since then, but for a while, this was actually my favorite of these new Star Wars films, and I honestly would say it probably still is. Like, even though I do like Force Awakens, I think I like this one a little bit better, but what do you think of Rogue One?
It's really hard for me to, in my opinion, I think it's the best. For me, it kind of clashes with Solo as being the best of the new Star Wars movies as a whole, and that's even considering Episode 7 and Episode 8. It's just, I liked it when I first saw it, but as time went on, I kind of have grown more and more angry towards it, sort of, because initially the trailers for it kind of implied that the story was going to be about Jyn Erso kind of experiencing what it's like in life, as if someone grew up in the Empire, let's say, and then she was going to get recruited by the rebels and then experience what their perspective on things were, and that was my expectations going in, and that's why I was like really, really hyped for this movie. But it turned out it wasn't like that at all. It was kind of generic and just like not saying like the things that happened wasn't bad. They were good. Like the action scenes were really good. I thought the characters were in it were very interesting. But Jyn Erso specifically, the protagonist, she's just kind of rather than I thought she was going to have a more three-dimensional story based on the trailer. So that kind of disappointed me. And then, but yeah, like overall it was an entertaining movie. I liked how the film looked. Very gritty, it felt like one of the original trilogy in like tone-wise a little bit, which I liked. I liked how the frame was kind of dark and gloomy a little bit, but not like, you know, Zack Snyder dark and gloomy, but, you know, enough to fit the tone well and everything. But yeah, I'm kind of back and forth between it. There's things that I like about it, and there's also things that I was severely disappointed with.
Now, the film is directed by Gareth Edwards, who prior to this directed the 2010 film Monsters, which if you haven't seen Monsters, I highly recommend that film. He also directed the 2014 reboot of Godzilla, and that's a movie, the 2014 Godzilla reboot, that I have a lot of mixed opinions about, but I do really, really love Monsters. And I do think he's a good director, and I think his directing's pretty good in this film.
I agree.
Even though I've heard that Disney kind of interfered with his directing a little bit, I heard he originally wanted... I think he originally wanted this to be even darker in tone.
I think that's what it was, like the idea that I was going with, where they were going to show like the Empire, because that's what the trailer implied. So I'm assuming that may be what Edwards was going for when he was making it initially, and then I guess Disney was like, you shouldn't do that. Table flip. Idiots.
Yeah, but you know what? I still think the film succeeds at, like, some of what it was trying to achieve. Like, I still think this really does feel like a war film. It feels like a war film just in a sci-fi setting, which is technically what Star Wars is meant to be.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, especially the final fight scene on the Empire planet, whatever. No, I agree with that. I just wish they explored it more, because, like, when Jyn Erso was with the rebels, they could have shown that a lot more, you know, and they could have, it could have been like a World War, or, like, you know, a war movie pretty much. It was kind of like that. It didn't reach the full level though, which I think they had the potential to get, but they didn't get there. It, like I say, it just kind of falls back onto, like, the generic Star Wars stuff, and, you know, I think the Star Wars fans want something different, but Disney keeps pulling it back to, it's gotta be just how it was with the original trilogy, you know, or something along those lines. And, like, it would have been cool to, like, experience, like, a Platoon type of movie, or, but yeah, like, I want a Star Wars, an actual war movie taking place in a Star Wars movie, and it didn't, that's what I thought this was going to be, and it kind of got there, but didn't get the full potential, I thought.
Fair enough, fair enough. Now, the plot of Rogue One is it's basically about the group of people who stole the plans to the Death Star and got them to the Rebellion, who were briefly mentioned in the original Star Wars. The story follows a young woman named Jyn Erso, whose father is one of the main scientists behind the Death Star. However, you find out in the film that he was basically forced into working with the Empire. Now, Jyn ran away after her father was captured by the Empire, and she was basically raised by a rebel extremist named Saw Gerrera, but she ended up parting ways with him, and she's pretty much been living her life as a criminal, and in the beginning of the film, we see her being taken prisoner by the Empire. Eventually, she's saved by the Rebel Alliance, and they convince her to try to find and rescue her father from the Empire so they can learn more about this Death Star project, and she goes off with a Rebel officer named Cassian and a droid named K2SO. But little does she know that Cassian was secretly ordered to kill her father. They end up teaming up with a former Imperial pilot who defected and two warriors, and now their main goal is to find these plans and get them to the Rebellion before it's too late. Now, the film stars Felicity Jones as Jyn Erso, Diego Luna as Cassian, Riz Ahmed, if I'm saying his name right, plays the character of Bodhi Rook, who is the former Imperial pilot who defects. Ben Mendelsohn, I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right, plays the character of Orson Krennic, who ends up being the main villain of the film. Alan Tudyk portrays the character of K2SO. Donnie Yen plays a blind warrior whose name I'm not going to be able to pronounce, but he, in my opinion, kind of stole this freaking movie. Jiang Wen, if I'm saying his name right, plays a character named Baze Melbas, and I'm not sure if I'm saying that character's name right or not, but he's another one of the warriors from Jeddah. Mads Mikkelsen plays Galen Erso, Jin's father. Forrest Whitaker plays Saw Gerrera, who, to the best of my knowledge, is actually a character from the expanded universe that they sort of incorporated into this movie, or at least I believe he first appeared on the show Clone Wars. Jimmy Smits has a small role in this movie, reprising his role as Senator Organa from the Star Wars prequels. And the movie brings back Darth Vader because this is taking place right before the events of the original film, and in the movie he's portrayed by Spencer Wilden and Daniel Naprous. I'm not sure if I'm saying the other actor's name right, and he's also voiced once again by James Earl Jones. In the movie, they bring back the character of Grand Moff Tarkin from the original Star Wars. Now, in the original film, Tarkin was played by Peter Cushing. Now, Peter Cushing's been dead since the 90s, so this movie features a CGI recreation of Peter Cushing, and I make a joke that the movie stars the ghost of Peter Cushing, but it's actually actor Guy Henry doing the motion capture, and he also provides the voice for Tarkin. C-3PO and R2-D2 make a brief cameo appearance in this film, and C-3PO is once again played by Anthony Daniels. And Warwick Davis has a brief cameo appearance in this film. Now, Warwick Davis has played several other characters throughout the Star Wars franchise. Now, something that you gotta keep in mind is this part of the video that you're listening to right now was recorded separately from the main discussion between me and my friend Eric, so here where I'm listing off the names of the characters and the actors who played them, during our actual discussion, Eric didn't remember many of the characters' names. Just keep that in mind. So, what do you think of, like, the acting and the characters?
I thought the supporting cast was better than the protagonist.
Okay. Real quick, I do want to give my thoughts on Felicity Jones and the character of Jyn Erso. A lot of people complain that she's very bland, she's very, like, emotionless.
She is.
To me, that's kind of the point of the character, though. She's supposed to be a very cold character.
Why?
Why not?
Because there has to be a reason why you're cold and...
She had a hard fucking life.
Wow, she hid a rock from the Empire.
Her mother was killed in front of her. Her dad was basically forced to work under the Empire.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, there wasn't enough development in that aspect of the story where I can get, like, I would have accepted her as like a cold, emotionless character if I saw, like, she grew up with the Empire and that's when she was, like, kind of lively and full of energy and everything, and then the whole thing with her father happens and that's when kind of changes her. It's been brought up in this world that the rebels are the evil force that we have to defeat, and then as the movie progresses, she finds out that she kind of comes to terms with the rebels and sees the good that they are causing, yeah. And so it kind of, she had the potential to have a great character arc, and just didn't do it.
And you see,
she's just there.
She didn't bother me personally. But what about the other characters in the film?
I forgot their names, but I love the Force-aware character whose name escapes me, but I know he's sort of famous in overseas. I liked him.
The blind Asian character?
Yes.
To me, he kind of stole this freaking movie.
Yes.
Are you kidding me? I'm blind!
I am one with the Force, and the Force is with me.
Which I like that, because it really sort of hammered home that this is a religion.
Yes. And I liked his sidekick with the big blaster machine gun, which was awesome. One of the best sound effects in a long time, by the way. That freaking machine gun, awesome. I like K2SO, whose name I actually remember. He's another character who kind of stole this freaking movie. He was very likable, unlike the other droid in the other movie.
Okay, we'll get there.
Fuck that droid. Anyway.
We'll get there. Calm down, you little...
We're getting close to The Last Jedi, so my anger is rising.
Okay.
But, no, K2SO was awesome. The pilot, whose name escapes me as well. That's the thing, like, with the current day movies, like, you kind of remember characters, but you don't remember their names at all. Which is, in my opinion, kind of bad.
Alright, well, I did like Mads Mikkelsen, because I fucking love Mads Mikkelsen. I think he's a fantastic actor.
He was one of the... again, the supporting cast was much more interesting in, like, focusing on as a story, rather than Jyn Erso. She was just there.
The ghost of Peter Cushing in this movie.
I was actually kind of surprised. It was bad. It was noticeable, but I appreciated it, sort of. The actor that did the voice did a good job.
Yeah.
The dubbing was really good. I have to give it that. And even Princess Leia, too, at the end. The CGI was terrible, but the dubbing was pretty good. Like I would say like the first scene, it was convincing, and then the later scene when he shows up again was the one that kind of like you're like, there's something off. It was, yeah.
What did you think of Vader's appearance in this movie?
He tells a pun, and James Earl Jones sounded good. The scene at the very end when he cuts up all the rebels in the ship was pretty awesome. Kind of something out of a horror movie. Which, can we get a Star Wars horror movie, please?
That's something I want to see.
Please.
Since they're doing these Star Wars spin-off movies, a horror movie set in the Star Wars universe would be fantastic.
I mean, look at all the monsters that you can have, and you can even create your own. Just make a damn horror movie in the Star Wars universe, please.
I will say Darth Vader in this movie, for me, felt like the most badass he's been since the original trilogy.
Besides his pun, right?
I actually kind of liked his pun, honestly.
Really?
I thought that was kind of cool.
Everyone hated it.
Oh, really? I thought
a lot of people did not like it.
I thought that was fucking cool. He chokes out
it.
the guy's like, try not to choke on your aspirations. that was cool. I like that.
I actually liked it too. To me, I get it. Like the reasoning is Darth Vader is not a guy who tells puns, but I kind of liked it. I'll admit it. It's cheesy, but it was pretty funny.
Now I'm going to cut to a few short reviews that some friends of mine did on this movie, and when we come back, you're going to hear me and Eric just wrap up our thoughts on the movie, basically.
The most beautiful part about Rogue One is that this really is Disney's way of saying to George Lucas very artistically, very politely, to go fuck himself. Now, what I mean by that is two things. Number one, this is a prequel, and it's way better than the 3 prequels that George Lucas did himself. And they're basically telling George Lucas, hey look, we can do a prequel, motherfucker. We did it. We only needed 1 film. You needed 3. Haha. Sucks for you. And number 2 is Darth Vader. Now, I love Darth Vader in the original movies. Don't get me wrong. In the original trilogy, he's a great character, but he is one-dimensional. In this one, they give him a couple more dimensions. Not too much, because he's not in the film all that much, and I won't spoil really anything. But when he is on screen, he has a sense of humor. Yes, he does in the original film, just a little bit, but it's more noticeable in this one. I mean, he's throwing shade like it's fucking Def Comedy Jam, And he does a little bit more, move around a little bit more. He's more flexible in this one. He's more badass. The one bad thing I would say that is in this film, because overall this is a great film, but the one thing that really irritated me was Forrest Whitaker. Now, that's not to put Forrest Whitaker down completely. He's a great actor. I love him in other films. The Last King of Scotland, one of the greatest films of all time. But in this one, he's overdoing it. I mean, really overdoing it. I mean, if you put this guy in a wet paper bag, this son of a bitch would just burn the shit down. That's how much he's doing, and I don't think that was really necessary. Yeah, it's forgivable because the rest of the film is so good, but it really does take you out of the film. However, on the contrast to that, everybody else is really, really good. It's really impressive for a Star Wars film to have acting on this level. I mean, we have some really good actors in this film. Most noticeable for me is Mads Mikkelsen. Now, he doesn't really do anything in the film. Again, not to spoil anything, but he's not really in the film too much. But when he's there, he steals the show. I mean, I love Mads Mikkelsen altogether, so maybe it's just bias. But I think he really does put his all into this film without overdoing it and making you really sympathize with him. And that's the other beautiful thing about this film, too, is that there are characters that are very complex. It's not just a story about, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, and they're going to clash at some point. There really is a fascinating thing going on where we have characters who are very complex. We have good guys who could almost be bad guys. We have bad guys who could almost be good guys, and you kind of sympathize with them. Again, no spoilers. And it puts it together so well. It does it so well that you're just like, damn, George Lucas, you couldn't do this you couldn't do this, you had 6 chances. You couldn't do this before. But anyway, let me not go on George Lucas too much. Yeah, overall, this is an amazing film. I love this film. It really is one of the best Star Wars films. It's not the best to me, in my opinion. I mean, if other people feel that it is, that's fine. I would completely understand that. But for me, it's not. I would say it's a step right below Force Awakens. Because for me, Force Awakens is the best Star Wars film, for me. I would say Rogue One is right underneath, because it is the Star Wars film I've been waiting for since I was a little kid. I mean, it's the dark war that I've been waiting for, the one that I imagined I was going to see if they ever did, a prequel before Part 4. This is exactly what I wanted to see, and it's also exactly what I wanted to see in Episode 6. It does have a really dark tone. It can be depressing at times. A little humor, and that's great, to kind of put some levity so that you don't kill yourself. But it does have a very mature tone. So when I say that I wouldn't recommend it for little kids, what I mean is just make sure that if you let your little kid watch this, that they're mature enough to take it. Because this is not going to be, a fairy tale. This is not going to be Part 4, 5, and 6. And this is definitely not going to be, the Clone Wars cartoon, or it's not going to be any of the comics or anything like that. Like, this is a really dark tone. This is like Saving Private Ryan of Star Wars. I mean, it's that level of that level of darkness. But for adults, this is just gonna take you away, and you're gonna love this film. You're gonna really enjoy it if you haven't seen it already. I think this is amazing. It's just, I can't praise it enough. I mean, Disney just killed it with this one. I think they killed it in Force Awakens. I won't spoil the Solo or Last Jedi, but I think these two specifically, they really killed it. I think they did an amazing job, and congratulations to them. I think that they deserve so much praise for this movie. And that's my review for Star Wars. Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. And thank you so much, guys, for listening. And have a good one. Bye-bye.
Now, after that one, before they did the next film in that new series, they did Rogue One, which was another sort of prequel that takes place immediately before A New Hope. I wasn't sure about this one because, again, a prequel, but I actually really liked that one too. What I really liked was they took this almost throwaway line from the first film, A New Hope, about where they got the plans and the people had lost their lives getting the plans to them, and made it into this whole exciting adventure. Because, I didn't think about that much when I first saw that A New Hope. I'm like, okay, so they got the plans. That's the important thing. But actually seeing them take that and develop it into this story, and giving you interesting characters that you sort of know are going to be doomed. And, even though because you've seen A New Hope, that they're going to get the plans to them, you're still just as invested. You're just as excited. I certainly was. So I thought that one was a really awesome film, too.
Yeah, Episode 7, very fun, very good. But it left a lot of questions. What's going to happen with Luke Skywalker? How is Rey going to master her powers? What's going to happen with Leia? Is Han Solo coming back? That wasn't a question. What's up with Rey's parents? That was a question. So a lot of questions, and we're finally going to get answers with Episode 8. But before I get into Episode 8, I'm going to talk about Rogue One. Now, Star Wars is definitely at its peak, 2015 to 2016. Star Wars is back on the menu. You thought Guardians is the big sci-fi franchise in the theaters. It was for a year, and then Star Wars came back and reclaimed its glory. And now we're getting Rogue One, a little spin-off. And that pretty much talks about the plans to the Death Star and how to blow it up. So that was an issue when they keep making Death Stars and they keep blowing it up, like, wouldn't you think of doing something different or structuring the Death Star different so it wouldn't happen? That was an issue. Or how is it so easy to blow up? We finally get answers with Rogue One. Now, Rogue One has probably the least memorable characters of all of Star Wars. I'm just going to say it. Not necessarily bad characters, but not memorable characters. Even Jar Jar Binks is more memorable. Again, he's bad, but he's memorable. I mean, K2SO is a good character. Yeah, but, I would say probably the beginning half of the movie was a bit slow. It wasn't that great. But it picks up, especially towards the climax, which was absolutely insane and intense. Darth Vader's in it, that's cool. He has one scene at the end which is absolutely incredible. So all in all, Rogue One, it falters between kind of meh to amazing. So mixed bag, but there's some good fun to be had with Rogue One.
Rogue One is great. For me, it was almost sort of like a surprise type movie because I thought what we were going to get was kind of this sort of side story about kind of the birth of the rebellion coupled with like what was going on during the period between Revenge and between New Hope. But what we got in the end was actually kind of a surprise prequel to New Hope because it literally ends where New Hope begins. And I was not expecting that at all. That was just like that last scene with Leia, you're like, holy fuck, this is a prequel, like a direct prequel. And it's so cool to see kind of a slice of life in the Star Wars universe. Like, here's what sort of is happening on the gritty side of things, on the outliers. And here's, like, you know, the people who died to get us information, that kind of thing. Because you got to remember, like, Wars is in the title. And this very much, more than the others, feels like a war movie. Jin is such a cool character. I love Forrest Whitaker as Saw Gerrera. If you're familiar with like the stuff like Clone Wars and all the expanding universe stuff, you know how cool that dude is. And he essentially is kind of like sort of the messiah of the rebellion. He's kind of the one who really got things started. Like, it all emanated from him to some degree. Diego Luna, awesome to see him in a Star Wars movie. So cool. Loved K. Anything with Alan Tudyk, I'm in. And Orson Krennic, man, you know, Ben Mendelsohn, I had seen him in stuff before, but here he really, you know, he gave Peter Cushing a run for his money. Like, I was really surprised how great a presence he had as a villain. That scene where he gets pissed at Tarkin, you know, you really feel like his rage and his just irritation with, you know, him being the mastermind behind some very pivotal things, and then, you know, you just feel like Vader and Tarkin just keeps trying to brush him off to the side. And then, of course, you know, you get some interesting insight into Vader in this, which is another thing I wasn't expecting. The fact that he has basically a resort that he lives in on Mustafar, which, if you've seen Revenge of the Sith, you know is a pivotal place in his timeline. And the fact that he kind of rests there is interesting. And by the way, if you want to read the comics, they're about to explain that whole thing, and they're doing it almost like a haunted house story. So I definitely recommend checking that out as a side note. Yeah, love Rogue One so much. Really defied my expectations. Definitely give it a watch if you haven't seen it.
It's a better prequel than Phantom Menace, but at the same time, there was other parts of it that could have been explored. You had these other great characters, but they were just thrown in there, but there's no background about them. And James Earl Jones coming back as Darth Vader for the last time probably was pretty awesome, epic.
As you can see, I clearly like this movie a little more than he does.
I was more disappointed. Very disappointed, in fact. But it's still the best of the new movies, I think. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. Honestly.
Are you kidding me? I'm blind! I'm sorry, that was amazing.
No, I agree. He was my favorite character in the movie, honestly.
And then, I will say I did like, there is sort of this, like, melancholy tone to the film, because you know these characters are going to die.
Yeah.
So there is this, like, sad, melancholy tone to it, especially at the end.
Yeah.
So I like that, too. And something I do want to point out about this movie is I do think it's interesting that this movie is sort of showing that there are some sleazy characters in the resistance or the rebellion as well. Like, her love interest in the movie, like, he gets ordered to kill Urso's father.
Yes.
And then, like, at one point, like, they're just gonna give up. Like, you could tell, like, some of them don't even give a shit about this.
Well, he didn't care. Well, before he met Jin Urso, like, that was his mission. He was just gonna be like, I'm gonna kill him in cold blood. I don't care what you say. But then, love interest and all that, you know. But that's what I'm saying, like, Jin Urso coming into the Rebels when, like, starting off with the Empire, that would have made this movie so much better. Because it would have made that seem much more impactful, I think. You know, because he's falling in love with someone that was technically part of the enemy and everything, like... It creates more, you know, more impact and more
drama.
Layers and drama, thank you.
So, I hope you enjoyed that review, and our next review is going to be on Star Wars The Last Jedi. I'm a fucking Sith Lord, bitch!